Scott, welcome back to school.
Right.
Back to school time frame and back to getting on air again with some amazing guests that we have lined up this season. How have you been all summer, my friend?
I have been great. Great to see your face again, obviously, and great to be back with the show and speaking with all our great educator friends across the country. I've been awesome. Things are going really well. Super excited for the year ahead and all that good stuff. How about you?
Yeah, same. Just been in high gear, ready for getting teachers back to school, making sure we have all the resources they need. Just super excited looking at all the social media, everybody going back to their classrooms, posting pictures of their kids going back to school. So, going to the local grocery store or Target and checking out all the school supplies, as a former teacher, you can't ever get enough school supplies, right? So even in my own current job, start of our new year as well at Microsoft, we always start over on July 1. So it's like a fresh slate for me, and people make fun because I get like my new planner out, just like the days of teaching. It's just,
Yeah.
It's a different world now. So I hear you have a new adventure this year, though. Why don't you share a little bit about your new adventure with the guest?
Yeah, thanks. I'm super excited. Well, and first of all, I echo everything you say. When you get a new binder or a new set of pens, like I still do the same thing. I love it. And there's nothing like that first day of school, that emotion and that energy that you get. So, my first day of school was a little bit different this year. So I left my role at Santa Margarita, one of the Microsoft Showcase schools, to open my own speaking and consulting firm. So I'm super excited. I loved everything I did as a Showcase school leader and a school leader. And I really felt the pull to want to help more than one school. I get that a little bit with the show and speaking at conferences, but I really just wanted to do it full time. And I really hope to change education, really get educators and school leaders to think differently about the learning process and how we run our schools, and just use this time as a catalyst to really make some great change. So really excited, looking forward to it. And what's that?
I said, I wish you all the success, and
I appreciate
anybody that is going to bring you in and have a little bit of your time will definitely benefit greatly. So cheers to a great new adventure and a new year together, and then the launching of our show for season 2. I'm really excited tonight for our first guest to kick off the season. This guest happened to get introduced to me by another one of my colleagues at Microsoft a few months back, and we brought him in. We talked to him internally a little bit at Microsoft to really understand like what his pain points were in his role and what he's caring about on a daily basis, what keeps him up at night. And this guy was fabulous. I just learned so much from him. I felt like the first time we met, I made a new best friend, and I was like, I've got to get Derek on our show for this episode and this season kickoff. So without further ado, I do want to welcome our guest, Derek Francis, to our episode and show. And I'm going to read his bio so I don't mess it up here because he's big words. But Derek currently serves as the manager of counseling services for Minneapolis Public Schools. He is an experienced cross-cultural counselor, an educator, and trainer who is passionate about creating ASCA-based counseling and support strategies for schools, organizations, and individuals with a focus on equity, diversity, and inclusion while supporting those from underrepresented backgrounds. So that is an amazing background, and just learned that Derek was actually, he's been gracious to give us his time tonight. He just landed off at the airport just momentarily from a speaking engagement where he flew to Wisconsin and got to talk to some teachers. So thank you so much for joining our show tonight, Derek. We are so excited to have you with us tonight and looking forward for everybody to learn from you.
Thanks so much, Robin. Thanks, Scott, for having me. I'm excited to be here. And thanks to the team over at Microsoft for this work. It means a lot.
Excellent. Well, Scott, I'll kick it over to you, my friend, and let you, kick it off with Derek and some questions that we have for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, Derek, again, thank you. Echo what Robin said, and thank you for being here. Tell the folks just a little bit about your role. Give us a sense of kind of the work you've been doing and some of the things you've been working on in and around the schools in Minneapolis.
Yeah. So my role is manager of counseling services for Minneapolis Public Schools. And that entails supporting over 100 school counselors and coordinators in their work with helping students with college and career readiness, social emotional learning, and their academics. And then I also support our district with helping to create inclusive environments. And so we're doing that through short videos and lessons so that students from different backgrounds can get to know each other, especially in the past couple of years with everything going on.
So right now, as you take a look at kicking off back to school for, this 2021-22 school year, and now this is now our third year that this pandemic is affecting our school year. Obviously, it impacts instruction on a daily basis, but I can only imagine, this pandemic keeps going on, right? How many more lives it's touching at the student level, the number of people that are now experiencing a friend or a family member or someone close that they have lost through this pandemic, or someone who's been very ill, et cetera. What are you seeing out there right now, Derek, with regards to that? How are our young minds absorbing this and handling this? So just a little bit of that, and then I also kind of want to dig in on what do you suggest that parents and teachers do as they're welcoming these kids back for another school year?
Yeah, that's and for the educators out there listening in, it's so important that we're mindful of our students and all the things they've navigated. And also, it's developmental. So from their age perspective, they're not going to comprehend everything going on or feel as in control as we do as adults. And so it's so important that we're mindful of how they're experiencing maybe the loss of a family member or the loss of a relative. And then also think about their attachment at that early age. If you lose a parent, that's one of your key attachments, one of the key people that you look to care for you, your caregiver. And so trying to process that, but also in the middle of a pandemic where you're socially not as connected to other people, or you haven't seen some of your friends and you're about to get ready to see them with school coming back. I think it's so important for us to be mindful too of what communities, and this is something we really focus on in education, is what communities have been impacted more by the pandemic. And so knowing that it's been our families who have been historically marginalized, like families of color, and understanding how we not only have to be aware of food insecurities that happen to our families that are lower socioeconomic, or families that have lost their jobs, but being mindful that we need to have spaces for students to be able to talk about that they've lost someone or their families moved or whatever transition they're in. And so that's something that we're really focusing on right now with students in the midst of the current tail end, hopefully, of the pandemic. I hope it ends soon so that we can be able to get back to doing some of the things we enjoy.
Yeah. And you mentioned some of these struggles, obviously parents losing jobs or, looking at food stability, et cetera. There's also seems to be a large rise of homelessness, right? And or missing students. I've been watching lots of things out on the news talking about, some school districts have like 30% of students, they don't know where they are right now even, and just tracking of that. Are you seeing similar types of data, and what are districts doing right now to especially from a counseling services? I think you're probably very involved from a lot of local, state, and government agencies as well. What's the plan for that, or how do we get these kids back in school?
Yeah, our school counseling program, especially in Minneapolis, we're aware of that. We've noticed at times where it has been challenging to get connected with students, or some students haven't been connected as frequently as we'd like. And so it's so important that we're doing the outreach. And so instead of us sitting back and waiting for students to come to us, how are we engaging in different ways, using social media, using emailing, using technology, but also as safely as we can, going in person, creating, and with back to school coming up and orientation, our goal as school counselors is going to be, we want to be in the community. We want to be in the space where students are doing life. So parks, going to different events in the community. We're going to go to sporting events, and we're going to be there to connect with students, see how they've been, but also we're going to be preparing in school to support students with groups and classroom lessons where we're going to talk about some of these topics around, well, how was the past 18 months for you? What are some things that you missed about school? And then also we want to encourage them to build relationships with each other. That's something that in the midst of all this, we have to realize that our city, I'm in Minneapolis, so our city experienced a lot of racial unrest, people say. And so, yeah, remember, a lot of that happened virtually. So now you're coming back into school spaces with all these different ideas of things that were talked about in different homes. And I think it's so important for us to create a space for students to be able to feel heard, but also to have healthy dialogue about people from different backgrounds and get to know them, not just be in a school space beside someone of a different background, but actually get to know about their culture or about their experiences and things that have been impacting their lives over the past 2 years. So I think it's a great opportunity for us as counselors to show what our work really is all about.
I love that. You hit on something in particular that I wanted to piggyback on, and the word is outreach. You said a number of things in there, but I've seen a number of different conversations this year that I'm really liking around this idea of outreach. And the reason I call it out, and I want to pick your brain a little more about it, oftentimes the first communication that a school has with a parent or a student is negative, right? Mm-hmm. Johnny got a detention, Brittany was late for class, so-and-so is failing, things like that. Talk about the positive impact that can have, certainly, because of the pandemic and virtual learning, but just in a normal school year, what can that positive outreach, that first contact being positive, how can that affect the relationship in the classroom moving forward?
As a school counselor, that is the game changer right there. I am a counselor who, when people are like, oh, this is a student that's struggling with their grades or they're hard to to connect with or no one has really connected with, I get excited because I know it really does. The connection to home is one of the things I'm mindful of, but the positive messaging, because I really do believe it's so important to let students know that they are valuable, that they are cared about, that there's no one in this world like them. I'm sounding like Mr. Rogers now. But it's so true because they don't hear that often enough. And so then most of the time, if you're getting a call home or we're going to call home, it seems like it's a negative thing. And one thing in school counseling we do in Minneapolis is called positive phone calls home. Our director, Jim Bierma, he is a school counseling pioneer, and he started that process of when you meet with a student, making sure your first call home is a positive call home. And you tell the student, hey, if you come to school 3 out of the 5 days of the week and you turn in an assignment, we're going to call home. You pick who you want us to call at home and we'll call. And so he teaches us how to make those calls and then hand the phone to the student and say, hey, talk to the parent or family member and let them know we're going to be calling next week when you do a good job again. That builds trust with the school, especially school families who have historically felt like, goodness, every time they're calling is something bad or does someone really like my kid? And I think it's important to build that trust. And so we're really big into that.
Yeah, I think my years of teaching, there were always the parents that would make those positive calls home. They were like, I didn't even want to answer the phone because it's a school call and it can't be good.
It's true.
And it's trying to flip that mindset that the school can call and it could be some good news on the other end. So it's all about intention and being positive, those positive intentions. We know that motivates adults. Why wouldn't it motivate our kids too, right? And our families, I feel like whenever you share that positive motivation with the families, you're building an advocate as a parent with a parent and teacher relationship or a parent and counseling relationship. And you'll have that parent, if there is an issue later down the road, they're going to be more likely to be on your side if they know that you're with them for the good and the bad.
Yes. And that's the mindset we have to have coming into education, especially in this time, because I think, as we talked about earlier, getting to the point where families can share transparently what's going on at home, what things they've navigated, because definitely that's a factor that'll show up at school. And so if our parents are in communication with us and they're like, hey, I just want to fill you in, this happened at home this week, can you check in? Or just be mindful of if you notice anything. That's what it's about. We want that kind of partnership with our families.
I love that. Go ahead, Robin. Sorry.
I was going to say, obviously in education, I'd say, especially in the past few years, obviously there's a lot of buzz around SEL, social emotional learning, well-being. But what about the teachers out there that are naysayers? They're like, I've been teaching for a long time. We used to not have to focus in on this. Like, why do we have to do this now? How do you bring those teachers along or maybe even parents, right, that are kind of like, I don't need that extra with my kids. We got that at home. They don't need it at school. How do you get them to understand the importance of emotional well-being of learners and the value of talking about that and having this open dialogue in schools?
Yeah, I think right now it's so critical that we're centering that we're centering the different things that impact students' emotions, impacts them socially, because it's a barrier to learning. If you have things going on in your life or something that's happened that is impacting your emotions, it's going to be so hard to really focus in and learn. And not only that, I think as educators, we want to help educate the whole self. There's not just an academic side to kids and then a emotional side. It's all connected. And the thing that I really do this work by is kids don't care at all how much you know until they know that you care. And that speaks to the social emotional part. I could be the smartest counselor in the world, could get them into any school they want. If I was like, oh, I know you'll get in, they won't care. Until they know, hey, you care about me. Oh, you're checking in on me. You want to get to know me. You showed up at my basketball game. That means something to them. And then not only that, when we're talking about social emotional learning, this is something I share quite a bit, especially when you're working with students from diverse populations. Race is a part of social emotional learning. Race is a social construct. The way I move in society racially and socially, and it impacts how I feel emotionally. If someone says something or the space is not comfortable for me emotionally or socially, it's going to impact my emotions. So we have to address race in school, especially when we're talking about how our students are feeling showing up. And so I think that's another layer, especially in the time we're in, is getting to know about the student's identity, know about their background, their cultural background, not just race, also about their other identities that make them who they are. I think it's so important that we're able to do that.
You mentioned that importance of, having kids know that you care. And I always think of Rita Pearson and her amazing TED Talk. I'm sure you've both seen it. I reference it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That every kid deserves a champion, and kids don't learn from people they don't like. And I know in my own experience as a school leader and a coach, it's so difficult to deal with those teachers who just day one, they want to dive into syllabus and curriculum and assessment and all these kinds of things. And it's just like, take time and really slow down and get to know the folks. I think that's so important.
I go back to the old, Henry Wong days of the first 5 days, right? And how important those are, but it can't be about your syllabus. And this is where you turn your paper in and, all the rules of the classroom. And then they hear that, if they're in secondary school, they hear that same spiel sometimes 6 or 7 times a day as they're going through classes, instead of taking some of that time and, using that first 5 days to build relationships with the kids, let them know about you, share a glimpse into your life, want to learn about them and their lives, what gets them ticking outside. I mean, at the end of the day, most kids, there are the small percentage of kids who are in your class who want to be there to learn whatever content that you're teaching. The rest of the time you're trying to be a marketer and a salesman as a teacher, trying to get them to want to be there and learn. But if they know that you care about them and their whole being, right? And that you share a bit about yourself too. You can't just put this facade up as I'm Mrs. or Mr. So-and-so. And, they need to know who you are, what you stand for, what you enjoy doing as well. And I think that's where those connections can be built and relationships can be built. And, but I do want to kind of touch on a couple of things that you said too. Even thinking about bias, and everybody has bias of some sort, right? It's based on how what you've been exposed to or not exposed to in life, that you form biases or, et cetera. As we look into the school year and, we're trying to be more aware of these things, what steps can schools take, Derek, or district leaders take to addressing and recognizing and hopefully getting I don't know that you don't get rid of bias, but I think it's more of the metacognition. It's knowing that we have bias and that am I going to think about a behavior in a different way because I know that this exists? And so let me look at it in different directions, right? How do you advise a staff to go through something like that where people actually go through this metacognitive process and thinking about their own bias?
Yeah, it's one of the areas of work I've really gotten really excited about because I think it's an opportunity for growth. And so the way when I support educators and even just conversations with staff members I work with, it really does begin, first of all, by understanding your values. All of us say we have values, and and so I like to start there, but also knowing your own self and your own identity. And I think that's so important because each of us have multiple identities, and our identities have privileges, and some of them are more marginalized. And I think the more we learn about ourselves, then we learn about other people and their identities, and then learning about, goodness, which identity is. So, for instance, for me as a man, as a straight cisgender man, knowing that identity, but knowing the privileges that come with it, and knowing who doesn't hold privilege that I have. And then I really am into humility. And so now we're talking about the personal work, because before you can work with students, you got to do the work on your own to say, where are my biases at? What are the areas that I'm not even aware of? And then I think next steps is you have to do the work as a team, as a community, as a school. And so being aware of what are the communities in your school that are being experiencing bias and discrimination. Students have been sharing about what it's like to go to school and the things they hear, not just from other students, also from staff. And so I think it's so important to hear that, but then create opportunities to grow and build cross-cultural connections. We have so many people from different backgrounds that live in these cities and go to schools, but don't really have opportunities where we're sitting and saying, hey, I want to get to know you and your background, your culture, or tell me about your experience in your country of origin, or tell me more about the language or your ethnic background. That is what I really feel is a part of helping students be college and career ready. As a high school, we can't only think about the academic preparation. It has to be the social preparation. Our students are going to go to post-secondary or a job, and I guarantee you within the first 2-3 years, they're going to work with someone who is of a different background or a different sexual orientation or from a different country. And we want them to be prepared to say, I see the benefit of working with that person. It's enriching the place we work at. It's enriching my life. And I think that's the work that I get excited about, because it's going to make our cities, our schools, and our country better.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's probably why I like tools like this. There's many different ways to use video tools, but for that reason is, I would say when I grew up, if you wanted to go experience a different culture, you'd have to like step into a church that maybe you didn't go to, or you'd go to a different area or section of town that had something more, culturally diverse, which I grew up in a town where, there was basically 2 cultures in the town. That was kind of it. And then I got to move to Houston, and I was like, oh, wow, there's so much here. There's so many different areas to go explore, foods to explore, religions to learn about, just a ton. But the reason why I say like tools like this is now with technology, we have the ability to have our classrooms call a classroom in India, call a classroom in China, wherever in the world, and like learn from these other students and what, essentially virtual pen pals, right? And have a glimpse in that. And so being able to have those global experiences where our students are experiencing other cultures and being more aware, like you said, it only makes them more prepared, because yes, they're going to step out into that first job in the workplace and be exposed to a variety of things. And wouldn't it be great if it wasn't, a place where they felt excluded or they ask those questions that are not appropriate to, to ask, because instead about it, and instead of like asking the weird inappropriate questions that sometimes people do, they're like, oh, I've experienced this, or like I share in your love for this type of thing inside your culture. I think there's so much that we can do with that. Anyway,
you got me excited about something you just shared too, because you got me really pumped. 2 things. One is I think the other skill too that and to help students is, or even adults now, is having the being able to take feedback, especially around a social topic, especially if someone's like, hey, this thing you said about maybe this particular ethnic group or racial group, that didn't sit well with me. Can we talk about it? Right now, I think there's a lot of people who could not sit for that and receive it and listen and say, you know what? Thank you for telling me. I need to get better. Instead, it might be met with, I would never do that. I love all people. I think that's a huge skill that we need to begin learning because we're gonna have times when we make mistakes. I've made mistakes, and I do professional development, and I make mistakes. And so knowing that we're gonna, but then the other thing is that I think is really important to cover and beautiful is the times where people get it right. And I again got to brag about my colleague Jim Bierma, and he's a older white guy, and he is someone who's been a mentor and an ally for me. And so when I say get it right, he's been the guy that I haven't had to even speak up at times about when I would see discrimination or bias. He would do it for me, and that feels so good. And I'm speaking to you now authentically as an educator of color, because I would say 99% of the time things get swept under the rug. It's like, oh my goodness, did that just happen? Let me let it be. I don't want to make it weird. And he's that kind of ally where he's like, no, something was said that wasn't right. Derek, how are you? I'm going to address it. And it's like, oh, and so that's a talent.
It doesn't put another burden on you.
Right.
Yes.
Whatever. I've been in similar situations, I would say a white woman, right? And being in places where there's been inappropriate comments made about women, and you're just like, okay, I could speak up, but then that's now another burden I have to own as part of this. But when I can have a male counterpart step up and voice that allyship for me and be like, hey, that was, are the women in here okay? Because that was really not appropriate.
That feels good, doesn't it?
Right?
Oh, thank you. They noticed.
Not only did I feel, awkward at the moment when the thing was said, but I didn't have to own that either. Someone else helped, share that burden with me, which is nice. But
yeah. That's, and imagine, I think those are the skills we need to, because right now when topics come up, building that endurance, that stamina to be able to hear it and say, all right, thank you for helping me. And then knowing how to make the correction. I think that's going to help, especially in our society when we start, instead of shying away from those hard conversations. And we've all been at those dinner tables where we're like, oh, shoot, this is coming up. Oh, who's going to ruin dinner today?
Here it comes.
Right. And we've been there. I've been at those tables.
Yeah.
I think, imagine if we started as a society to build the muscle to say, all right, I'm going to be able to hear this and receive it, and I'm going to be mindful of it so I don't do it again. And if I do, I'm going to say, oh, shoot, I did it again. It's a part of humility. We're not perfect. It's an ongoing process.
Yeah. Everybody's got an Uncle Jim at the table, right?
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. And you just sit there like, what are they going to say? Oh, my goodness, please. And then, there's someone hitting them like their spouse, like, don't say that here, please. Yep. And their kids are like, Dad, please don't. Sorry.
And sometimes it's not Uncle Jim. Sometimes it's a colleague or a friend or somebody even closer that you deal with more than just at holidays, right? There people exist all over the place.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, you've been a delight to learn from yet again, Derek, but, we'd be remiss to let you get off the stage here, off this camera, without poking a little bit of lightning
round. Let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to start off with a few softballs, and then I'm going to give the heavy hitters for Scott here. So what food is it that you cannot live without?
Spicy fried chicken. I love it. Oh, it's my favorite. Okay.
Perfect.
Well, who's your favorite fried chicken? I mean, is it like homemade?
There's a place in Louisville called Indy Fried Chicken. And it is amazing. So good. Spicy. It burns your mouth. And then the other one is Gus, world famous fried chicken.
Yeah, out
Have
of
you had Gus?
Memphis. I've eaten at Gus's world famous fried chicken.
Oh, isn't it good? Yes. Gus
Yeah.
is, so those are my 1 and 2.
Yeah. Well, everybody, you heard it from here. Best recommendation right now.
Yes,
all right. So if you could be anywhere in the world right now, any place right now, where would you be?
I'd go to South Africa, District 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's in South Africa, District 6? Because I'm a curious mind wants to know.
So it's a neighborhood that during apartheid was in between the right on the border where so with apartheid, white people in South Africa were more towards the coast, and then the people who were more of the natives were outside of there. But in between, there was a spot right outside the border where people from different backgrounds, they said it was like a mini community with people of different backgrounds, and there were like barbecues and potlucks in the neighborhood, and kids from different backgrounds going to people's houses, and it was something like a big, awesome, multicultural community. And I want to see what it's like because there's a video that I was watching that talked about it. So
that sounds like it needs to be on my bucket list too. That sounds pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and always learning from you, man. Always. All right. Did you pick up any new hobbies in quarantine?
I did. One that I revitalized. I don't judge me, but I can open a beer bottle with my teeth.
Nice.
Don't make me go get one either, because I would. Nice. I don't know what kind of setup this is here at Microsoft.
We expect a TikTok later.
I was just going to say that.
100%. I'll send it to you. I don't have TikTok, but I'll get it to show you.
Yes, done. All right. Challenge. All right, Scott, over to you.
All right. I'm sure this happened during quarantine if you found free time in amongst all the work that you do. But what's the last series that you binge watched, and how long did it take you to get through it?
Oh, goodness. I am still working on Explained on Netflix.
Okay. Yep.
I love Explained. And so there's a new, they just put out the new season started in July. And so I think there's like about 4 of them. And so I'm only on the second one. And so I love Explained. I like to watch things that I can learn. I'm a documentary kind of guy.
Yep.
Yeah, I like Explained too.
Love it. It's a great show. And we'll get you out of here with this one, Derek. Who inspires you the most in your life right now?
Oh, man, it'd have to be, I've been digging into the Bible, so Jesus, and then also my mom. She has been huge, just an anchor, just a rock for me to connect with. And we're really a lot alike, and I look like her. And so I'm a mama's boy. Yep, I said it. I'm a mama's boy. I love
every mom around the country right now is giving you a big applause.
Yep. Right.
Yeah. So, and then my daughter Grace, she's awesome, and she's 2, and so she's someone who I do the work because when she starts school, when I work with students, I've always thought about students as my kids, and now I finally have a kid. And so I want to make things better for the next generation, especially for kids of different backgrounds that feel like valued and that they belong and supported in school.
Awesome. Well, we'll leave you with 2 homework assignments then. One's the TikTok video. Got to see that. and then we also need a cute picture of Grace. And
I can do that.
Bonus points if you have one of Grace and Mom together.
Okay, cool.
There you go.
Awesome.
Double bonus if you're holding Grace while you open the beer bottle. How's that?
I'll do that one. I got you. I'll do that.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much, Derek, for joining our show tonight. It's been a fantastic kickoff to our season 2. And I know everybody learned so much from you, and hopefully we'll connect with you out on social media. So you guys definitely check out Derek on social. We'll drop in his handles here. He's on LinkedIn, he's on Twitter, and he's soon to be on TikTok.
Yeah, thanks so much, Microsoft friends. And I appreciate it. It means a lot. Let's stay connected. I know some connected last time, and it's been great. So I would love to connect.
Absolutely.
Sounds great.
Take care.
Thanks,
Have a good one, guys.
Bye,
Have a
Derek.
good night.
Bye.
What a perfect kickoff to the year, right? Just an absolute perfect kickoff.
Yeah, he's just great. He speaks from the heart, and that's what I love the most. His authenticity it's there. The moment I met him, I was just like, yeah, this guy's he's the real deal. So super excited to have him. Well, Scott, I think we have a few resources that we want to leave everybody with tonight to talk about how to address some of the social emotional learning in our schools and different things that we have put together, whether they're resources that are out there for everybody on the web or some different things that you can use if you're a Microsoft school and you want to use some Microsoft tools with your students this year. We'll share a few of those with you. So let's just kind of count those down off of the list. And first is castle.org. For those of you that are not aware, this is a trusted source that has knowledge about high quality evidence-based social emotional learning. It supports educators and policymakers and leaders to enhance experience and outcome for all students pre-K through 12th grade. Their mission is to help make evidence-based social and emotional learning an integral part of education from preschool to high school, not as a bolt-on, but a built-in into what we're doing. And as Derek said, these shouldn't be skills that we teach in isolation. These are skills that we should teach embedded into our curriculum each and every day, because especially as our society continues to evolve and change, and many of the things that we required on humans to, compute, if you would, in the past or solve for, those are going to be taken over and replaced by a lot of technology right now and moving into the future. And so we really, I think at this point in time, need to put all the emphasis and amplification on these human skills, not only because it's just the right thing to do, but it's also really what's preparing our students for the work that they're going to be continuing to enter and thrive in throughout their lives. All right, next one I got for you is the Mindful Night. The Mindful Night is an amazing lesson that was put together inside of Minecraft Education Edition that actually teaches students a lot of different skills, such as self-awareness, coping skills, social management. It also teaches this all through a tool that our kids love to play, right? Which is Minecraft. So if you are looking to how to teach some of these skills with your students, you can throw them into the Mindful Night lesson that's already done. It's a pre-built world where students can go in and learn some of these skills through this great lesson that was created. Next one is the Reflect app. So if you're using Microsoft Teams, there is an app inside of Teams called the Reflect app. And this just allows a teacher to very quickly get a pulse on how their students are feeling. So they can do this multiple times throughout the day, kind of check on, the pulse of the class, whether they're feeling good or not, or they're disengaged, they're relaxed, whatever it is. A teacher can send out a poll to the students very quickly, get the data back, and continue teaching and moving, but being able to address and know where your students are in a very rapid way. That's what the Reflect app is all about in Teams. So it's literally meant to address their social well-being of students while inside of Teams environment. And then I'll share a couple other quick things from Microsoft Base 2 that I see. So obviously you can use the app, but some of the best things I've seen have just been teacher innovation. So kids a lot of times need words to describe how they feel, because often when you say, how are you feeling? Or give me a one-word check-in on how you're feeling right now, you'll get things like good, okay, fine. And those may not be the words that they are really describing how they feel. So a lot of times teachers will just create a Word doc or put it in OneNote and put a whole bunch of feeling words into a doc. And so the students can scan that really quickly and find the word that best represents how they're feeling versus having to create it on the fly. Because then you're like, I think I'm feeling this way. But if you have a list to choose from, it just makes it much more quicker for students to be able to articulate and for you to get that data back as a teacher to say, when my students say they're feeling fine, that doesn't really describe much to me. But when I know that they're feeling hungry, that's a very different response, right? So lots of ways that you can use that, or even in Teams. One of my favorite things to do, even just with adults and my colleagues, is asking them to pick a GIF inside of Teams on how they're feeling, or where they are right now. You might get a squirrel looking, for a bunch of nuts because they're, distracted, right? But it's a fun way for students to be able to say, I'm distracted, or I'm tired, or, I'm present, or I'm excited. There's a lot of gifts that can explain that too. And it just often just provides a more lively experience too, gets people engaged. Yep. All right. Inside SEL is the next resource that we wanted to share. It's a blog and a monthly email newsletter that's focused on curating, and sharing relevant articles about social emotional learning, policy updates, research. So you can subscribe to Inside SEL if you want to get some more of this evidence-based, research-based information in your box. And over to you, my friend Scott.
Wonderful. Thank you, ma'am. These last three are direct from Derek. So again, we want to thank him for joining us tonight and for sharing these resources. These are things that have been helpful to him, both in his job and as he's going around speaking with and doing professional development with educators and counselors around the country. So this book, Not Light But Fire by Matthew Kay, it's a resource that actually provides a roadmap. So not just a book that you read and get information from, but actually provides you a roadmap and a little bit of a plan for educators in leading honest and purposeful discussion focused on race. And this book is available for Amazon. I just love that piece about the roadmap. It's actual practical things that you can put into practice right away. Next is this opinion piece from thehill.com. It's written by Cheryl Holcomb McCoy, and it discusses culturally responsive teaching and how it can help reverse the underachievement of students of color. It includes some really relevant research from the University of Washington, who are obviously huge in the Pacific Northwest in a number of different areas, especially in the research area, and specifically talking about how culturally responsive teaching has enhanced social, emotional, and academic development of all students, not just the underserved students, students of color, things of that nature. It actually helps students of all backgrounds. And lastly, here's another article on educator bias. This is from brookings.edu. It's a nonprofit public policy organization based in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. And this one examines the research around educator bias and the effects on student learning, test scores, and many other factors. There are a bunch of links, probably 20, 30, 40 links or more to other articles and research that were compiled in this. So I love just the amount of information you can get from this article. Super helpful. Again, very, very information rich and information heavy. So we encourage you to check out all of those resources. And one thing we're going to do this year to help with that is use one of our favorite tools, Wakelet. We always thank our friends at Wakelet. So we will be compiling all these links into a Wakelet. You see the link there on the screen, and we will certainly tweet this out, share it out on social media. But everything you see here in the slides tonight will be included in that Wakelet. So we will see you back here on the 14th, actually 3 weeks from now because of the 5 weeks in August. So 3 weeks from now, we'll have episode 2. And once again, looking forward to more great conversations this year and really digging deeper into how we can positively affect education.
Absolutely. And don't forget, you can always catch all of our episodes are recorded and are available on the YouTube channel at aka.ms/US Microsoft EDU Live. You will find the recording from tonight's episode as well as all of season 1 too. So in all your spare time, if you want to learn from some amazing guests, it is the place to go check out.
100%.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight, friends. We look forward to another episode with you in September. I'll be coming back fresh right off of vacation for our next episode. So looking forward to that. And may everyone have an amazing start back to your school year, whether you have already started or that's coming up soon for you. We wish you nothing but the best and hope everyone stays healthy, safe, and strong out there. We're sending all our love to you from our show. Have a great night, everyone.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.